This is Gabriel Gonzalez for Cageside Press here with Sammy-Jo Luxton, who fights Gemma Auld on May 10th, Belfast, Ireland, for PFL Europe. Sammy, first of all, the obvious question, I know you're getting it a lot. It's been a while since we've seen you in competition. What are the feelings? What is the mood as you get back to competition now?
I've just got a pure buzz going through my body. It's been a long time coming. Definitely coming off such a well performance for my last one. I think it was like 18-second knockout. But obviously personal issues hit. So I'm raring to go and ready to put on a show for everybody.
I'd be remiss. Obviously, we know last year was very difficult in terms of everything, and then I think fans just kind of want to know, was that the reason why just time off to deal with everything with your family that kept you out of competition?
So yeah, there was a lot of things that just added up. I ended up crashing my car. That was my fault. Then my car got broken into, and my whole kit bag got stolen. And then I was about a week out from my FCC fight, and my grandma passed away. And I didn't really grieve her until after the fight. And then 6 weeks later, I got a phone call saying that my dad had had a heart attack and he was now in an induced coma. I live in Manchester. That is where I train, and my family are back home in Devon. So it was a 6 hour drive back home for my family. I was sat by him bedside, and then I wasn't very well, and I needed to have an emergency surgery. So I ended up getting put in the ward directly below my dad. So my poor family, they were going back and forth up the stairs to my dad and me. And then the hospital was so kind. They understood the situation. So they had all my drips and everything and wheeled me up to my dad. And then I was basically wheelchair bound whilst he passed away. So I then came back, started training for the PFL Europe tournament. And then about 14 days out, I started not feeling great. Little beknownst to us that my operation had had a small infection, and it started attacking my ovaries and my kidney. So from that, it progressed into sepsis. So I got rushed into hospital again. I was then seizing, tremoring. I was put on the strongest antibiotics possible. But from the course of it, you're only meant to be on these antibiotics for about 3 days. I was on them for 5 or 6. So they had to get specialists in because my body was just not recuperating the way it should have been. There was actually a pinnacle point where I started getting pains in my chest, like near my heart, and I got laid down flat, and they were ready to shock me back in. And one of the nurses, she was an apprentice, so she wasn't quite ready for the situation. So she was going, "She's 25. She's too young to die. She's too young to die." So I just had like a overwhelming feeling in my body, like this is my time. I'm done. I'm going to die right here, right now. And miraculously, I pulled through it. And they said, due to me being so fit and healthy, that's the only reason that I pulled through with the sepsis. From that point, I just took it as a sign from the universe that I wasn't meant to fight. My dad's been a very pinnacle point of my fight career. He took me to my first ever lesson. He took me to my first ever fight. He's traveled the world with me. He's been in my corner. So I felt like the universe was telling me, like, no, you're not meant to fight without your dad. So I really took some time off just to appreciate life with my friends and my family. And then I started building back up slowly, coming to the gym, just doing little bits and bobs when I wanted to and when felt right. But I feel like from that point, I was ready like to deep dive on the little specifics that I had probably missed in the big intense of a fight camp. So I was able to work on little things, and then it got to the end of the year where I was fully cleared medically from November. And then in January, I got a phone call from PFL asking if I would like to fight again. So grabbed opportunities with both hands.
Uh, I gotta say, I hear that story. I feel like I hope this is the right way to put it. I feel like I need to say both I'm sorry and congratulations at the same time. And I
Yeah.
don't know another way to express it. That is Absolutely. I'm sure we could talk about it for much longer than the time we have scheduled. Um, I guess my biggest question, when you go through something like all of that, I have to imagine at some point there had to have been a time where it's like, I could live a life without getting punched in the face. I obviously got very lucky that it was given back to me, so to speak. Was there ever any thought, maybe I could just be doing something else after all that?
Yeah, so I definitely looked at it from that point, and I basically said an Irish goodbye to the sport. I told like my friends, my family, and people in the gym that I retired. I would not be doing it again. But I wasn't putting a downer on my training schedule. I was still coming in and I was doing little bits and bobs. And I feel like once you have that fighting bug, like you can't get rid of it. So the love for it just built back up. My confidence built back up. Obviously, like physically, I built back up. So now I'm just ready to fight again and just be full health.
I mean, look, I think for a lot of fans, that's very exciting to hear. And certainly we're back to, and good to know that you're doing it in much better health and everything else. So that is great, first and foremost. To ask a little bit, touch upon your father, obviously a huge part of your career. I know you're going to be getting questions about it next week. When you lose someone, I think one of the most natural things is, you're reminded of their role, what they would be doing, what they would be saying when you go through it. With this first camp, with this first fight, I mean, I guess what reminds you the most? What do you think he would be most, in terms of advice or just words giving to you in this time?
I just know that he would tell me to keep on pushing. Like some days have been quite emotional, and my dad was my emotional helper. So if you had a bad training session, I would ring my dad up and he would just make everything better. So it comes to the point where I've had a tough training session and then he's not at the end of the phone now. But I just know that he's telling me to keep on pushing because we've got world titles to get. Like it was his dream as well as mine to be stood proud with a world championship belt around my waist. So I'm doing it for his legacy now.
Can I ask how obviously it's a shared dream? There's kind of that stereotypical, especially with the fighters and everything else, like, oh, for example, dad's a fighter, so, intimidates the boys, maybe trying to talk to his daughter. He trained you to be the fighter, I guess. How did he handle the emotions, watching you get out there and, it could be very intimidating. You're about to see a loved one take damage, and I'm assuming it's even more heightened considering you're his daughter.
Yeah, my dad was cool as a cucumber. Like nothing ever phased him until like he heard my name being called out. And when the Apple Watches came out and you could do your step count, he had something ridiculous, like 30,000 steps. And the venue was so small. And I was like, what were you doing? He was like, I was just pacing up and down and up and down. So yeah, he got nervous for me, but it just heightened the emotions when I did win. And then we all just celebrated together.
I love that story. I think that's beautiful. I'd like to ask you, obviously working with PFL Europe, I think when people look at you, it's very easy to draw some comparisons, and I'm assuming that has to have crossed your mind. You see someone like Dakota Ditcheva go through PFL Europe, now obviously enjoying great success in the main line. You see someone like Kayla Harrison built up from the ground up as a professional, now obviously has gone on to a lot of different things. When you see that path that women like that have, received from the PFL, do you think about following a similar route? Do you see yourself saying, hey, I could be part of the tournaments and I could go on to, more high profile matches with the company?
Most definitely. So originally when I was a Thai boxer, my weight was about 54, 55. That was my fight weight. So when PFL approached me, there was only a flyweight division at that point. So I just took it with both hands and I thought, well, I can eat a little bit more. But now as the company is growing and there's more opportunities, we're looking to do this fight at flyweight, then I'm going to drop to a catch weight at 55 kilo and then another one at 53, just lowering my weight just naturally and just giving myself time to feel it physically. And then hopefully next year, there'll be a strawweight global, and then I can solidify myself as one of the it girls from PFL.
I was gonna say, do you get overly invested in, obviously the PFL has gone a lot of places. They're in the United States a bunch. They're across Europe, and then now the Middle East is brand new for them in the last year. Uh, do you get overly invested in wanting to travel the world with your career, or do you kind of want to stay closer to home, perhaps? Because obviously they have a great presence in Europe.
Yeah, I love the Europe fan base. I don't think anybody gets behind the fighters more like the Europe fan base, but I love traveling with the job. So when I was a Thai boxer, I ended up going to Malaysia, Latvia, like bigger places like that, Thailand. So I love traveling and fighting. Like it's just putting business and pleasure all into one.
I'd like to ask a side question. A couple of years ago, and she advertised it with a rather spicy photo for fans. Remember, you stayed a little bit with Miss Elle Brooke of Misfits fame. I spoke with her about it. She spoke very highly of you as a training partner and just as a friend. I'm wondering just what was that experience like for you? And obviously, what's it like seeing everything Elle has gone on to become in that space of influencer boxing?
Yeah, she's done amazing. I feel like people looked down on her when she first started out, but she was putting in the work. And obviously, when I got joined into that training camp to be her sparring partner, I could see the work that she was putting in. And she's gone on leaps and bounds to the point now I feel like she can mix it with the pro scene. And a lot of people say, oh, she can't do that. Like, look at her job. What does her having to do like on the internet affect like her physical side of things? She's actually just built like a boxer. She really is.
I was gonna ask that. Like, so you're in agreement. I think she could mix it up with a few pros. I'm not saying the
Like,
world championship, right off the bat, but definitely I think that she is proof, and I think you'd agree. For those that are athletically gifted and show that commitment, you are very capable of going from the influencer scene to the professional scene if you have the dedication.
most definitely. Like, look at what she did to Paige Van Zandt. She ended up dropping Paige. In Paige has been hit, and she's been hit hard in 4 ounce gloves. So to do that to a seasoned fighter, that is impressive in itself.
A couple more questions as we get close to home. Obviously, fighting Gemma Auld. Just what do you think of her game and what she brings to the table as an opponent?
I actually haven't watched any of her fights, and I don't plan to. I'm not one to go searching on the internet to try and like come up with a game plan because I feel like if somebody watched my fights, they wouldn't be able to tell half of what I've got going on and what I'm capable of. So I don't want to put myself in that predicament of waiting for something that might not actually happen. But she's Scottish, so she's hard as nails. That's as blunt as I'm going to put it.
Love it. Final question. Obviously, fans are going to be like, "Oh, what's Sammy going to look like after so much time away, after so much has happened?" What is your message to the fans who are going to tune in on May 10th and see the return?
The return of me is going to be a deadlier version of when I left. I've really looked into my physical and mental side of things. I am tip top. And training wise, everybody's saying, will I be cage rusty? Will I be ring rusty? Not at all. The training that I put here is harder than what I will go through in a fight.
Well, I think we're all going to really enjoy it. Sammy, best of luck. Ladies and gentlemen, Sammy-Jo Luxton, Gemma Auld, May 10th, PFL Europe, Belfast, Ireland. It's going to be a great show. You guys are not going to want to miss it.